Welcome back, Year 11. This is another walkthrough on paper 3, the Nazi and Weimar Germany paper. You should have hopefully already watched the videos for the rest of section B. So 3A, that's the utility question, and 3B, that's the first interpretation question that is asking you to explain the key or main difference in view of the two interpretations. We're now going to move on to 3C. Now, 3C builds on what you've already done at 3B. So we already know that these interpretations differ because one says that there was a real lack of support, and the other one says that there actually was quite a lot of support. So people conforming and then people not conforming. Okay. Now, this question is going to ask you why those interpretations might differ. And this is a really nice question because all you really need to do is play a game of Snap, basically, if you've ever played Snap before. We are going to use one stock phrase that I just want you to memorize and repeat in the exam. I don't want anybody, and I mean anybody, no matter how clever you think you are, I don't want anybody to deviate from what I'm about to teach you. Okay? So it says, suggest one reason why interpretations 1 and 2 give different views. So we're now looking at the why. Why do these historians disagree with each other about the extent of support for the Nazi regime? Now, here's the kicker. You may use sources B and C to help explain your answer. Now, really, that should say must, because this is what we're going to do. We're going to use sources B and C to help explain why interpretations 1 and 2 are different. Now, as we should know by this point, historians base their opinions on the evidence that they have seen. So we develop our interpretations based on the sources that we have looked at or the sources that we have in front of us. Now, if our two sources, B and C, give different opinions and our interpretations give different opinions, maybe we can just match up the interpretations to the sources and say, well, maybe interpretation 1, that historian only studied sources like source B, for example, or maybe our historian in interpretation 2 only studied sources like source C, and maybe that's why they've got different opinions. That's exactly what we're going to write, okay? So we start off by giving the reason why they might be different, and this is the part I want you to memorize. One reason might be because they based their opinions on different sources. Okay, memorize that. Make sure it is buried deep in your memory somewhere because that will get you a mark. One reason might be because they base their opinions on different sources. We're then just going to play Snap. Okay, so we get our sources and our interpretations and we're just matching them up. Now, this source, as we've looked at already, talks about how the people will never be won over by the Nazis. People show very little interest in Hitler's nonsense. And then it goes on and talks about various ways that the workers at this factory showed disrespect to Hitler. So this one is negative. It shows a lack of support. All I need to do is to then find the interpretation that also demonstrates a lack of support. And because I've already done my notes, I know it's interpretation 1. So I know that, see if I can match this up, these two match. This historian might have used a source like this to form his or her opinion. Okay, so that's what I'm going to put. So we go back to our question. We say, for example, source B shows, and then we say shows a lack of support for Hitler. Therefore, this type of source may have led to negative opinion like that of interpretation 1. Okay, so we're just matching the source and the interpretation up and saying, well, this interpretation is quite negative. It says that there was not a lot of conformity. People didn't show a lot of support for Hitler. And that same idea is true in source B. So maybe this historian used a source like this, because we can see that they both have similar opinions. They're both using similar kind of evidence, aren't they? They're saying that people didn't want to conform. Okay, we then just do the exact same thing, but for interpretation 2. So we would then go through and say, well, for example, source C demonstrates a lot of support, and that's also what we find in interpretation 2. So therefore, interpretation 2 may have used sources like source C because it demonstrates a really positive view. It demonstrates that there was a lot of support for Hitler. So that's all you do, okay? You state the main reason why there might be a difference in views, always saying it's because they may have used different sources, and then just go through and match them up and say why they match. That's literally it. That will get you 4 out of 4 on that question. Okay, now if you could all have a go at actually writing that one out, that would be fantastic. If you're in Miss Lewis's group, you should hopefully have this question in front of you. Now, off